Hi, Ellie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar regarding the counterfeit issues for footwear and glove. I think there are some latecomers for this webinar, so we might be interrupted a little bit during the session, but it's okay. We can proceed with it. First of all, thank you very much for joining in for the meeting. And today I'll be sharing with you how serious the problems are with the counterfeit issues out there. And it applies to all of textile goods, basically. But it's I focus today on the footwear and glove. But once again, it applies to clothing, anything else that you can think of. A sleeping bag might be another application, and the home textiles, so on and so forth. And you may not realize how bad the situation is. So I will share what I have experienced and what I know. Once again, I appreciate that you are sharing your valuable time with me on this subject. So let's move on. So today, I broke it down to 3 different parts. First, intro. I'll be briefly introducing about the HINMAX organization and myself. And I'll also introduce you about the virtual program. I'll spend as little as time as possible in this section to cover more about the counterfeit issues. Now I'll cover questionable products in the market. In fact, these are the products that you can easily spot in the market. If you go to a store today, you might be able to find these issues. And the fundamental issues may arise from the supply chain and the ordering process. And so I will cover that as well. And the material purchase, how it's done. And what's really important for us to understand is consumption calculations. So in order for factories to produce your products, how much material is needed, but how much material is purchased, and these are going to be the discussions that we're going to have. And as brands or importers, the risks that you're exposed to, there are some serious implications if something goes wrong, and that we'll discuss, and ways to avoid it. And then as the last part of it, I'll cover a little bit about what we do to try to avoid these counterfeit issues, and also some of the brief introduction about our technologies. So the intro, as I mentioned earlier, we'll go through this really quickly. We offer 8 different product categories, and 6 of them we received Spot Top of Innovation Award, and the 2 more recent products, flame retardant and Glove Max. We have not had time to apply for the award, but these products are basically built based on the same technology platforms as the other products that we were recognized with the Spot Top of Innovation Award. So you will see a good performance of this. And Hinmax is headquartered in Montreal, and we have the manufacturing and supply based in China. We ship all over the world, and we have our regional office in Korea as well. And a little bit of myself, I studied textile engineering, and I have experience in R&D, sales and marketing. And formerly, I was a 3M transnational account manager for Thinsulate and Scotchgard. Now, from this experience, I had an opportunity to visit many factories, and how I understood how significant the issues are. And a lot of brand customers don't realize how bad the situation is. So the purpose of this webinar is for me to share some of these experiences and what we do to try to avoid these issues. Now, I created and invented all the products and technologies under Hinmax brand. And I also invented some other technologies, including Vision in Motion. And I have been recently recognized by Marsam as the top 100 fab leaders. It's an honor for me, and it is because of the breakthrough innovations that we brought in the industry. And quickly, I want to introduce our virtual assistance program. So because of the pandemic, we're not able to travel to visit suppliers or attend trade shows and things like that. So there is a lack of opportunity for us to be updated on the industry development and the new products, and or even most basic knowledge as to understanding why you're using certain type of material and things like that. So Hinmax offers a series of webinars on thermal insulation technologies. And today's webinar is 8th of it. And we have had very good reviews for the past webinars. And I'm really thankful that you are here with me today. And the industry we cover is apparel, footwear, glove, home textiles, sleeping bags and food bags, and etc. And the target audience, anybody in the global supply chain, including designers, spec writers, and product managers, sourcing managers, and other decision makers can benefit from these webinars. And we started it in October 1st, 2020, and it is continually offered on monthly or bi-weekly basis. And we basically send out email invitations for the attendees to join in. And as I mentioned, we had 7 previous ones, and this is the 8th. And if you are interested in getting the recording of any of these previous webinars, please send me an email. I will send you the recording so that you can have a better understanding of the important knowledge base. And the only webinar that I don't have the recording for is this one, October 15th, pros and cons of the thermal installation and heating technologies. I still have the PDF file if you want to review it, and we can discuss any questions that you might have. And we also offer a brand or company specific or college webinars. So in the open forum like today, some customers may be reserved in terms of raising questions and things like that, because it may be your internal and confidential information and things like that. But so because of those circumstances, I offer separate webinars for a brand or company. And in fact, I had one this morning with a footwear brand. And we can customize the webinars to focus on the products and technologies of the specific brand or company or needs of a college. So and the time can be set based on the convenient time of each participant. So that would be quite a convenient thing for us to do. Now, this is the main part of the counterfeit issues. Now, first, I want to show you some questionable products in the market. Now, I took these photos last season. So this, not this ongoing winter season, but not last season. And you will see the varying kind of marketing assets for a specific brand. So in this example, it's a 3M Thinsulate. Now, the label that you see on the right-hand side, since I worked for 3M, I know the development of their labels and tags and things like that, marketing assets in general. I can tell you that this label on the right-hand side, it's a embroidered label, and 3M discontinued, if my memory serves correctly, 3M discontinued embroidered labels almost 10 years ago, even more than 10 years ago. But this is still in the market. And also the artwork that you see here, I never saw 3M having this kind of artwork with the TM and MC in big bold lettering right underneath Isolang. So this to me is an obvious counterfeit product. And the thing is, if the factory that produced this footwear understood that Thinsulate changed labeling from embroidering to printed, they would have tried to follow the look of the new label formats. I bet the factory which produced this footwear never purchased any genuine Thinsulate product in the last 10 years because they don't even know what the genuine label looks like. It's this bad. Now, is it the only example? You can actually go out in the market and look through either gloves or footwear, even the clothing. You will see all kinds of suspicious marketing assets without any consistency in the market. And this is an indication of how bad the product, the problem may be. And you might actually want to check yourself whether your imported goods have the proper updated tags and labels. Now, that's one part of it. And second part, another example of questionable products in the market. Now, this store is selling a whole bunch of boots with the Thinsulate hang tag here. And they were selling it at minus 70%. So I actually purchased a pair of boots, not because I needed, but because I wanted to have an example of how bad the situation is. I bought a pair with $3.25 Canadian. So and the regular price would be only about $7, $8 period. And so it's, and also another problem is that this hang tag here is a hang tag that is designated for gloves, not for footwear. So this once again is very, very questionable. And this same store was selling actually 5 pairs of gloves with Thinsulate hang tag for $10. That was their regular price. And once again, there are a lot of suspicious products in the market. And in my perspective, a large portion of them are outright fake. And another issue that you might be faced with is products in discount stores, whether it's genuine or whether it's counterfeit. There are a lot of products in discount stores at low prices. So this is the issue with the brand value. Keeping up with your pristine image as a brand may be impacted by this situation. So where do they come from then, the counterfeit issues? So let's look at the supply chain and ordering. So as a brand, you might place an order directly to factories, or you may go through agents, whichever reasons there might be. And the factories will go and do sourcing for raw material, and then they put it together for finished goods. Now, when it comes to thermal insulation material, one of the things that are quite different from most of other material that factories will source, it's not visible because it goes and sandwiched between the shell and lining fabrics. So it's invisible. When it's invisible, there are more room that the shortcuts can be played in. And as a brand, you only deal with either factory purchasing team or supply team or agent. And you don't deal directly with, you don't get involved in raw material sourcing or any detailed process like that. So there is a disconnect for sure. And the brand perspective, we don't know, especially when you see the types of questionable products that I showed you earlier, we don't know whether things are done properly for you. And so if you look at the internal process of factories, let's say taking in your orders or taking in other customers' orders and things like that. And the fact that the purpose of the counterfeit materials, tags, and labels is to make it look like genuine. So, in fact, this is my experience from my past 3M life, that I visited a factory and that they could not even identify which are counterfeit and which are genuine because they all look alike. And so there is a big question mark with this type of practice. And as I mentioned earlier, even the experienced factory workers cannot tell whether it's a genuine or counterfeit material. So if you think about the possibility of counterfeit material, tags, and labels used, even if a factory that you deal with has the best intention for you, there is a good possibility that one of the 3 combinations can go wrong. And I've seen many examples of that. So I'll cover that a little bit later. So in the whole supply chain and ordering process, what kind of risks are you exposed to? So this is the risk between the factories and the brand, you as a brand. The risk is your goods can be caught at the international borders. Now, this actually happens more often than you think. I mean, some of you may never had these problems, but in my past experience, I've seen many brands going through a hell of time because of the the legal issues that arise from these situations at the custom clearance. And once the custom clearance gets involved, basically it becomes a legal thing. And there is a lot of energy and even money gets spent. And this can have a grave consequences for your operations. So when things like this badly happens, what happens? I'll explain that to you in the next couple of slides. So basically, the current situation is it's been many, many years that factories have been practicing ways to cut their production costs by using counterfeit materials, tags, and labels, because a lot of times they don't get caught and you can't see it. So therefore, they feel confident that this is going to be okay. So for example, if a factory buys only half of the material required to make your product, the insulated market price of B200 is $6.50. And if they source the other half with a counterfeit material for $1.50, for example, genetic material without proper functionalities, they will save $3.25 for 7 pairs of shoes. That is almost 50 cents per pair. Now, we all know that it's not easy to save 50 cents per pair. With either it's gloves or footwear, it's the same thing. This is a very easy saving, because a lot of times you can't see it again inside to verify whether it's the right material. So it has been decades that there have been problems in the market. And even some factories will have higher contents of counterfeit than others. And I showed you the example of footwear with outright counterfeit label. And that factory would have only used counterfeit products only. So that is the situation we have today. And material vendors provide the tags and labels based on the right consumption. So I'll cover this right consumption part in the later part of this presentation, which is very important. So for example, 3M has been providing only 7 sets of tags and labels for gloves and tags for 1 yard of material for decades. So you buy, your factory buys 1 yard and they give you 7 sets of tags and labels. However, they make a lot of factories will make a lot more than 7 sets of footwear or gloves. And I'll explain to you why this happens in the later part of this, this presentation. So there is obviously a shortage of tags and labels. And these shortages are covered by counterfeits. And the bad part that I see in this whole picture is that brand customers do not know this. Factories charge brand customers for the material which is designated, which is specified, but they are blindly not aware of this situation. So when the large quantity of counterfeit materials, tags and labels are being produced and transported across international borders, most countries will do custom checks at the customs department. And the purpose of the custom checks is, of course, for the authenticity of imported goods. I personally experienced many cases of shipments containing counterfeit 3M materials, tags or labels, and they were caught at the Canadian Customs Department. And when this happens, the legal team of the involved material brand contacts the brand customer, which is you, basically importers, and a painful legal process begins. And this process can be really, really painful. and it can take several months. And the brand customer loses the opportunity to sell the products during the season because it takes it gets held up for months. In the best case scenario, the outcome will require the brand customer or importer to cut off tags and labels and sell the goods at discounted prices after many months past the season. So that's the best case scenario. In other scenarios, it may involve having to destroy all the goods and pay the legal fees and penalties and etc. So this can get really ugly. Now, this part is normally, I know you don't get involved in the material purchasing from the factories, but the least knowledge that you need to have is this consumption calculations. So how it is understood, how much material a factory needs to produce your products, and that is shown in this section here. So in case of footwear, I'll cover the glove section later. In case of the footwear, HeatMax offers 3 different quality standards. The left side is minimum requirement, recommended on high performance. I'm going to focus on the minimum requirement because that's probably 99% of the of what the brands are doing. So it requires to cover minimum 3 inches from the bottom of the foot all around your feet, and there is no requirement to cover the bottom area of the foot. Now, this is an exercise I went through with one of the factories of one of my customers. And what they did was they put down the paper cuts of size 9 men's shoes in the width of the thermal insulation material, which is 150 centimeter, and in 1 meter length. Okay, now when we talk about the consumption, usually we go by yard. So when you consider meter versus yard, obviously the size, the area becomes smaller. And size 9 versus size 10.5 or 11. So for most North American brands, they will use size 10.5 or 11 as a peak size, which is, let's say this is an average size. And so when you use size 10 versus size 9 versus size 10.5 or 11, basically the width becomes larger and it covers more areas, right? And then we have a cutting allowance and we have stitching allowance. So when you factor that in, there is a factor, 1 meter versus 1 yard. So when you take 1 yard, then you actually, let me write it down for you here. Sorry. So when you see this picture right here, you have paper cut 1, 2, 3, 4. That cannot be used. So total, out of total 46 pieces, which means 11.5 pair, you have to take out 4 pieces, which equates to 2 pairs. And then when you have a size 9 versus size 10.5 or 11, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that extends all the way to the end of this sheet. So these 6 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has to be taken out. So theoretical maximum of men's boots that can be produced with 1 yard of the material is 30 pieces, 36 pieces, which translates into 8 pairs per yard. Now, that is not even taking into account for the stitching allowance, but nonetheless, this is the number. And when you look at the cutting allowance, horizontal cutter process usually requires about 15 to 20%, and die cutter process, if you have die cutter process, you can actually have a pretty precise cut. So practical maximum is basically about 7.2 pairs or 7.7 pairs. But when I try to sell my product to factories, most customers will say, oh, we need 12 pairs or 14 pairs, 12 sets of tags or labels or 14 sets of tags or labels. They demand a lot more than the physical space that a yard gives them. So that's a strong indication that the unidentified material is getting into the picture. And because I mentioned to you earlier that this practice has been going on for decades, everybody, meaning all the factories, are doing it naturally. And so when we point out that this is the coverage area and you cannot produce 12, 14 pairs per 1 yard, a lot of them will resist. And it takes a little bit of time to correct it, but HeatMax is determined to correct this situation, because my brand customers who trust in using HeatMax material should get the product with the HeatMax material. And that's why we actually work quite vigorously with the factories to make sure that they purchase right quantity and they use it in the right way. Now, glove, although your hands are smaller than your feet, it is a lot more complicated than feet, because feet is just a 1-2 piece in a very uniform form that you can cut. But the gloves, it's not like that. So usually, although the area the hands have is smaller, we use 7 pairs per yard for large size men's as the industry convention. Okay, and also the fourchette area, to cover the fourchette area, there are a lot of complexity in the gloves compared to footwear. So now let's look at the risks you may get into. As I mentioned earlier, there are several risks that you face. And one of them is use of unidentified and low quality materials. So that is certain. And also another risk that we're running, we mentioned earlier, we talked about the custom clearance issue. The bigger issue I see is that when you sell the products with sub-quality material, then there are customers who may not be happy with it. And the most consumers are silent, as you know, and this is never a good thing. Once again, as I said, brands are charged for the use of certain quality material, but when you're not serviced with those types of material, we should all take actions to correct it. So that is one risk that you had. And another thing is basically when you specify a certain type of raw material, that's because you want to get the performance features from recognized brand. In case of HeatMax, we offer a significant improvement in warmth, as well as other performance features such as windproof, water resistant, sweat extractions. I'll run a quick video after this slide to show you what kind of performance benefits you get. And environmental benefits, such as a clean recycling initiative, etc. So at this point, I will actually pull out a video which you can get from our website. So if you go to our website and you scroll down, you can either click on footwear or glove. Let me use the glove example here. Sorry, the internet is running a little bit slow. So in the glove section, you will see the applicable technologies of HIMMEX popping up. And if you go to the video gallery here, and I'll show you just one example of maybe this video. So in this video, you will see we are doing some certain type of experiment, and the HIMMEX material is here. And as you might be aware, our HIMMEX material has pretty much the lowest density in any textile material that you use, because we have fiber intertwined with each other with a lot of air pockets inside. So it's a very low density material. And what we'll do in this experiment is that we put a piece of our HIMMEX material in a cylinder like this, and then we'll tighten it. And then we'll pour water on top. Because of the fact that it is such a low density material, you would expect that the water would fall down, but it did not. It does not. And as you can see, the low pressure air from the bottom is seeping through. So the fish can live. Actually, this can be a fish bowl. And we ran it for a long time, and then the performance still exists, and there is no problem for fish to live because it's totally environmentally friendly product. And actually, while we are here, I want to show you another impressive performance feature here. So I'll pass this to very strong wind, because we do two different types of experiment. One is with a hand fan, which is a very low speed. Okay, so here you can see how strong the wind is. In fact, let me. So we use a very strong blower, and you can see the wind speed close to 100 kilometers per hour. And we use a medium weight of HIMMEX technology. You can see how strong the wind is, but there is no wind coming through. Once again, considering that the product has a low density, this is a very impressive performance feature. And another thing that we can tell you is that these performance features are put together without use of any chemicals. And when we have these types of really superior performance on HIMMEX, and when you order HIMMEX, you want to make sure that it is used, but in some cases, it may not be. So that's based on the past practices of a lot of other brands, and we are here to make sure that you get all the benefits. And it's a part of HIMMEX performances, but as you can see, HIMMEX is compared with a competitive brand, which is most broadly used in the industry. And you can see in 100 GSM, HIMMEX has a thermal efficiency 4 times higher than the competitive brands. And 200 GSM area, it's 3 times higher. So obviously, it's a really breakthrough technologies that we developed, and our prices are very competitive. So you don't want these products to be counterfeited. And it's a temperature rating example. And the one customer did a competitive analysis with a competitive brand of 200 GSM, HIMMEX 200 GSM. We got the temperature rating -40 degrees Celsius versus -50 degrees Celsius. the customer, this particular customer, thought that they would never reach minus 50 degree with that particular combination or specs of the finished goods, but they were able to reach minus 50 with our HeatMax material. And another example is a competitive brand 200 GSM versus HeatMax 100 GSM. We were able to reach the same temperature rating. So once again, this is a very breakthrough technology, and we are determined to work with customers to provide all the benefits that they deserve. I covered this area earlier, custom clearance. Once again, I have to emphasize, once you get, once your goods are held at the customs, there is no easy way out. You're dealing with the big brand legal team, and you're dealing with the government. So you don't want to get to this, but if your chances of getting caught is so random, like I said earlier, you have a combination of counterfeit material, hang tag, or labels, and the chances of the probability, how it works, you have a very high probability if the customs department do the checks, and that's where the risk is. So how do we avoid it? So I put the 3 best practices, best practice 1, 2, 3, and some of them, especially the first one, may not be applicable, but it may be applicable for some brands. So I am listing it, but the best practice 2 and 3, it's applicable for all of the brands out there. So as I mentioned before, we have a disconnect between the brand and factory, and there are all kinds of things that can happen in the backside here. And that's how you are exposed to the risks. Now, HeatMax can come in if a brand or agent can place the order directly to HeatMax, and we order the right quantity based on your order quantities, then there is a higher chances that the factories will do a proper job. And also, we can put in place a quality control program so that there is no cutting corners, no bad practices. Those things will happen for your programs. So that is best practice 1. Once again, a lot of brands don't want to get involved in the nitty-gritty of the material sourcing and so on and so forth. And their agents may not be wanting to do that either. So best practice 2. So if the best practice 1 is not applicable, or we can combine it together with best practice 2, it's a close collaboration between brands and HeatMax. So HeatMax will be working as the first line of defense and verifier to see if the right quantity of material is purchased and used properly by factories. So with this, I'm already doing this with many brands. And basically what the brands will do is they will provide the information of production orders. So in this table, you will see the factory name. Of course, all these are fake identifiers. And they will give me the style name and category and quantity, number of pairs. And so how many pairs per yard they will produce their products based on their size analysis. And then it will arrive with estimated total usage in terms of the yardage. So with that information, HeatMax, when we receive orders from each factory, we can cross-check, and if they are purchasing less quantity, then the flag goes up, and we work with brand to double check with the factories. And when we go through these practices, most factories will correct their practices. Now, there may be a series of discussions regarding the size, peak sizes and consumptions and things like that. But this is an easy part. Once we have a close collaboration between the brand and HeatMax, we can get things right. Another best practice, we are actually in the course of implementing this in our system, but we have unique identifiers to verify the authenticity of the HeatMax products. Right now, most of the brands out there will rely on the tags and labels to try to see if it's a right product or not. But there are a lot of limitations. If you can fake the material, you can easily fake the tags and labels. So this is not a guaranteed method, because I know how in my previous job, how a certain brand put the authenticity mark in the hang tags. And once again, that is not a 100% verifier. And there were a lot of discussions when I was working for that company, because the counterfeit issue is so bad. There were a lot of discussions about putting the identifiers in the material itself, but the cost is so high that instead of selling it for $5, they would have to sell it for $100 per yard. So that was never a proper way of identifying it. But HeatMax is able to implement these unique identifiers to verify the authenticity of the HeatMax products without charging arms and legs to the customers. So we are able to maintain the existing competitive prices for all brand customers, yet we have unique identifiers to verify the authenticity. Materials are invisible because it's inside, but it is still verifiable for the authenticity. That's the unique part about this method that HeatMax is going to implement. And no need to rely on removable hang tags as in the case of other brands. So once the tags are removed, then in other brands, it's impossible to tell whether it's genuine or not. But we don't have to rely on the hang tags and labels. It's a permanent identifier and can be verified until the end of the life cycle. Of course, we don't have to analyze whether it's authentic or not after, like, let's say even after 3 months after the goods are sold. But still, the system that HeatMax is developing is actually guaranteeing that we can verify the authenticity until the end of the life cycle. So these are the good part that's coming up. I often use this analogy. In fact, I mentioned a couple of times already that one of the big issues of thermal insulation for brands' perspective is that it goes inside. You can't see it from outside. And another situation that it has created, because of the fact that it's invisible, there has been a lack of technological development in the industry. So when you look at the old vehicles, you see a large fuel tank. And with the cutting edge technologies, with new vehicles, you have small fuel tank. And sometimes you don't even have fuel tank because you have electric motors and things like that. You have so many different performance features. This is why you don't buy these types of old vehicles anymore. You have new vehicles. Now, with the technological advancements that the HeatMax has made, we are able to, warmth-wise, the most basic functionality, which is warmth-wise, HeatMax can easily match the cold rating of competitive brands 200 GSM with our 100 GSM, 400 GSM by 200 GSM. Basically, we are cutting the use of fibers by half, yet we can exceed the performance of competitive brands. And we have really brought the insulation technologies up to date. And in addition to the superior insulating value, we also offer many additional technology features, such as dry cave to remove the sweat from your body, long-range thermal dynamics, cold spot relief, water resistant, windproof. You saw the video earlier, and we have many environmental contributions that we make, as you can see here as well. So really, if you are using old product in the market, you're using basically large fuel tank and old heavy machines that will not get you far. And I actually developed this marketing piece because one of my customers said, you know what, with some the existing brand of insulation material that I'm using, they're marking on their label the gram weight to indicate the performance, basically warmth of it. And I told him, I gave him this analogy when I heard that, because basically you're saying that if you judge the performance based on the fuel tank, this, you would buy this, but no one would buy this today. We have much better technologies today, and HIMMEX gives you all these performance benefits. So sometimes we just have to look at it from a slightly different perspective. And this is one of the reasons I created this. And I put together all the performance benefits that you can expect from HIMMEX in this chart. Of course, these are over and above what we already offer, which is the industry leading thermal efficiency. But over and above, we offer all these as well, and many different environmental contributions as well. And also, we have the solutions, either whether it's a glove, footwear, or clothing. We have breakthrough innovations to cover down to minus 100 degrees Celsius. So most of the cases, your products may not need to have this kind of rating, but with the reasonable ratings like these that you can see, we can easily design the thermal insulation part for you to reach these types of temperature ratings. And with these extreme ratings, I can tell you one example that recently there were Himalayan countries that fought with each other, and some people died, some soldiers died. And so I was approached by the military service of that one particular country, and they asked me to develop the solution for the attire solutions for the altitude 4,000 to 5,000 meters and the wind speed at a certain level. And so that those cases, we would need these types of temperature ratings, and we were able to satisfy the customer's needs. So it's possible for us to do that because of the breakthrough innovations that we made. Now I'm almost closing this presentation, but when you have a chance, I would like to ask you to go and visit our website, www.himmex.com. For the first time in the industry, we built the website based on the application-specific contents. So if you are in the gloves, you should not have to go through all kinds of non-relevant information to reach to the information for gloves. So you can actually click on the graphics with glove or footwear or clothing. You can get all the relevant information in one place. And also, we put a lot of video contents to explain our advanced technologies based on the 3D models. So you will see how the footwear turns and how the functionalities work in 3D formatting. And so this will help you understand how the cutting edge technology works. And you will see a wide range of technical data, and you will have also webinar notifications there as well. So when you have a chance, please go and visit. And if you have any questions, or if you want to hold any webinar for your own organization, you can contact me at info@himmex.com. And the next webinar, I'm scheduling it for April 18th, but I'll have to check a few things. I will send you email invitations when that happens. So this is what I prepared for you. I once again appreciate everyone who joined and stayed in. And if you have any questions, please drop me a line or call me anytime. Once again, thank you very much. Take care.